Hello, guys. It's Thomas here, and today I want to talk about startup fundraising. On one hand, this is a topic that has been covered in great detail. You can find a lot of resources online about how to execute a successful fundraise for an early stage startup. But on the other hand, from my experience and my learning as a VC, I have seen the same kind of mistakes being done by founders, first time founders who are embarking on the journey of fundraising for the first time again and again. So that is why I have decided to record this short video where I want to share a few of the key learnings and tips for founders when they are starting to explore the fundraising journey. So let's start. Tip number one: make sure you have a VC case. So this sounds very obvious, but what I mean by this? Well, there are a lot of great businesses out there which can generate free cash flow, which can support a great lifestyle, but that doesn't mean that they are necessarily a fit for a venture capital investment. So when you're building a startup or a company, make sure that inherently this is something that can grow very, very quickly and that has truly potential to be a big company. Because if not, then it's going to be very, very difficult to raise money from a pure VC. VCs will look for scalable companies because that is an inherent tenet of their investment thesis. They are looking for 50x returners. They're looking for companies who can, with one investment, return their whole fund. So, so there is a very, very specific thing that they are looking for. So first of all, take a pretty honest look at what you're building and consider if this is a case for a VC. And the best way to do this is that if you have a few friendly people that you know that are working as VCs, at least two or three people that you can reach out in your network or that are your friends. Just have an honest conversations, with them and ask them what they're looking for, what are the criteria that they are considering in their investments, and then really take an honest reflection on what you're building and see if there is a fit between what they're telling you and what you're building. Tip number two is to keep enough time for your fundraising process. So founders will be usually quite optimistic about how long it's gonna take them to close the process and close the funds. But from my experience, you should really count on 6 months as a rule of thumb. Um, this will, of course, depend on a lot of factors, on macro environment, on your company, on US founders, of course. So there's really no one magic number, but 6 months I think is a realistic expectations. So really think about how does that align with your timelines, uh, as to avoid fundraising under pressure. Tip number three is to try to avoid fundraising under pressure. And what I mean by pressure is not just time and timeline pressure, but also trying to avoid any significant background noise or mixed signals. So you can have, a lot of pressure coming from your co-founders, from your team, from the way that the cap table is set up, from existing investors, etc., etc. And VCs are really a picky bunch. Their funnels are usually quite big. So the way to think about this is really having all your ducks in a row is super super important, because the more background noise and more mixed signals that come in your way and that permeate the communication with VCs decrease your chance of a successful fundraise. Tip number four is that fundraising is a numbers game. And this is a lot of implications. But let me start with saying that I have seen this time and time again, that the founders will speak to 20 or 30 VCs, and they will get discouraged with all the no's that they are receiving. But the truth is that even the best founders who went on to build unicorns often face a 1% success rate when speaking with VCs in the early stage fundraising rounds. So that means that essentially speaking or having intro conversations with 100 VCs will lead to a one yes, and this is something to keep in mind when you're building your CRM, first of all. So my tip would be to be very, very organized in how you build your long list of VCs and how you approach them and how you follow up on them, but really just keeping in mind that this truly is a numbers game. You need a quality funnel, but you also need a quantity in the beginning of the funnel of your VC contacts to be successful. So don't get discouraged by first initial no's, even if it's dozens of no's, and make sure that your top of the funnel initial conversations amount is significant enough or big enough for you to be able to make a conclusion about whether your fundraising can be successful. So unless you speak to 100 VCs, I would say that this is a sample size that makes sense on the top of the funnel to see how your fundraising will actually go. Build and maintain relationships with VCs early. So this is really a spin on the proverbial "always be fundraising" proverb. But again, what I mean by this is that you should not be in fundraising mode all the time, of course, but you should always be keeping at the back of your mind the idea of building the network, the database, and warm relationships with as many VCs as possible. Because once you actually get to the active phase of fundraising, it's simply much easier to follow up on an email conversation that you've already had, or to reach out after you meet someone face to face, rather than cold emailing or cold outreaches. Obviously, the success rate of the latter is much smaller. So really, keep building the database of VCs and those relationships all the time, not just when you're fundraising. And another small tip in the toolkit should be that whenever you meet a VC, you should get his or her email and try to include them in an occasional updates about your company. So of course this does not have to be as detailed as an investor update for your existing investors who are already invested in your startup or business, but sending out this quarterly update about how the company is doing and how it's developing to all your contacts in your list is a super helpful tool to keep your business on top of mind of these VCs. Again, with the goal of just being able to approach them much more easier when you actually start to fundraise. Get a head start on due diligence. So there's a lot of backup materials that you will need in your fundraising process and in your due diligence process. So that includes the basics like polished pitch deck with a great narrative. That includes a data room, which is well presented, easy to understand, and organized. It of course includes your internal tools like a CRM of the VCs that you're trying to reach, etc. But really, just having those materials that are investor facing, so that pitch deck and that data room ready and well prepared, can really set you apart and set you for success. Of course, if the VC does not like your company or the team or the vertical, these materials are not going to help you much. But if they do like these things, then being able to present these materials, which are well executed, well done, and ready to be shared immediately, can really help you and make a dent in how successful your fundraising will look. Keep things simple. I mean, this rule obviously applies to a lot of things in life and business, but it applies to fundraising as well. So, what I mean by this is that if you put yourselves in the shoes of a VC, they do certainly have a cognitive overload of seeing, dozens of pitch decks every day, having intro calls all day long, etc., etc. So if you just think about like how many things they need to go through, it's really helpful if you keep things and the explanations around what you do and what is your business and what is your traction and what is your narrative and value proposition as simple as possible. So don't overcomplicate stuff. This obviously applies to the pitch deck, which really needs to be as simple as possible. Obviously not dumb, but simple in a super crystal clear fashion. But that also applies for a lot of other things. So, for example, if you're building a data room, make sure it's very well explained. How is it structured? Make sure that you include a README file in the data room, which guides the user through the data room, through the structure, which explains what is where, etc. Because this really makes life easier for the person on the other end. And ultimately, if they understand what you're building, if you're super crystal clear about why they should fund you, it makes life much easier for them, for the investors, and also the propensity that they will like you and they will reach a positive conclusion about your business is much higher. So, in conclusion, these were my 7 high level tips for any early stage founder. And obviously there is a lot more ground to cover and dig deeper into any of these topics on the pitch deck side, on the data room side, etc. So I will be trying to create more in-depth videos for each of the topics where I think I can help and add some value for you guys out there. But I hope these 7 ground rules are useful for you guys in your fundraising process. And as always, please do not hesitate to reach out or comment on what areas or topics you would like to see covered in much more depth. Thank you very much for taking the time to have a look at this video, and have a great day and all the best of luck in your fundraising efforts. Thank you.